It's got a great city. I love it. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is creating and consuming OData services. And I realized that the rest of my title got cut off in the book. It says for business applications. I'm going to focus more. I mean, this is a dev talk. We're going to build some data services. I'm going to teach you how to build them. And then we're going to also consume them, but we're going to consume them from more of a BI kind of perspective, looking at Excel and SharePoint. Okay, so if you don't care about Excel and SharePoint, the second half of the talk is going to be like that. I will not get upset if you leave, but if you stay, I swear it'll be really cool. Okay, all right. So my name is Beth Massey. I am a senior program manager on Visual Studio. So I work on the team called Biz Apps. So we write tools for SharePoint, Office, Azure, Data, and we have the new product, Visual Studio Light Switch as well. So I'll be talking about that tomorrow. But today we're going to focus on OData services. So let's go ahead and get started. So what is OData? Okay, who has never heard of the term OData? That would be kind of surprising. It is kind of a buzzword. Okay. OData just means Open Data Protocol. That's really all it means. It's a protocol that sits on, it's a RESTful protocol over HTTP, and it sits on top of the Atom Pub protocol. Okay, so it's like an extension of Atom Pub is really what it is. Okay, and it really just enables you to do basic CRUD operations over the net against data sources. Okay, so it's a protocol for exchanging data over the web. It's not just retrieving data, it's also update, delete, insert, okay? So what's kind of cool about the support, like the RESTful verbs, HTTP RESTful verbs, like post, you have merge, you have delete. These verbs map very nicely to the CRUD operations of a database, for instance, okay? So you can kind of think of it that way. There are SDKs available for other platforms besides .NET, so this is not just limited to a .NET framework. Okay, but we are today going to focus on the .NET SDK specifically. Okay, so you can go get different SDKs. They're available for other platforms, Java, JSP, those sorts of things if you want. But I'm going to focus on .NET. So hopefully everybody here is a Microsoft person, so we all have Visual Studio. Okay, so why do we need it? So why did Microsoft create this, protocol in the first place on top of Atom Pub, right? Well, we had a lot of, so everybody's been using web services for a very long time, right? Okay, so everybody knows what a web service is, regardless of whether it's ASMX or WCF, right? It's just a web service. It's a way to say, here's a contract, here's the way I call this method, and here's the return values, and here's what I expect, right? And so we started writing a lot of these kinds of web services for just doing basic operations against our database, like add customer, get customer, delete customer, update customer, right? Okay, so how many times do you do that in an application around web services? A lot, right? We got a lot of different types of entities, a lot of different types of contracts, and this protocol is not meant to replace the the messaging transactional messaging that you do across messages and that kind of thing. It's not meant to do that, but it's meant to help you just do the CRUD part, the update, the insert, the delete, the customer. Instead of you having to write all those methods yourself, it's just a protocol for just let me do that. Let the plumbing do that for me. Okay. So, and it's RESTful. It's not SOAP based at all. Okay. It's an easy way to address entities over the web. Okay. So it's a lot lighter weight. Okay. But it's not meant to replace WCF services. Okay. It is built on top of WCF though in the .NET. All right. So there are a variety of products. I have like a bullet here that's like SharePoint 2010. Obviously, we're going to have like a little fun with SharePoint at the end of this talk. SharePoint exposes all of its list data as an OData service. Okay, so meaning that you can get at all the lists, that custom lists and document libraries and that sort of stuff inside of SharePoint as an OData feed, and we'll play with that in a little bit. So the idea is that a lot of products in Microsoft are getting this ability or basically exposing a lot of their data via OData. Okay, so the idea is it's a standard protocol for dealing with data. Even SQL Server reporting services, now when you create a report, you can actually return the report as an OData feed as well. It's pretty cool. Okay, so that's kind of where we're going, and obviously it's not just Microsoft WebSphere. As I threw in there just to say, okay, it's not just a Microsoft only. There's other companies building on top of OData as well. The Microsoft Azure Data Market. Who has not heard of the Data Market? Some folks. Okay, so we'll play a little bit with the Data Market. It's just a place for people to put, or companies to put their data sets up and you pay for them. Some of them are free, and some of them are pay per transaction. And they all are, you can consume them in your applications to make them more rich via OData. Okay? Or if you have, like, maybe you work for a company that's got some, really cool data that you want to sell. Okay? So the Azure Data Market has these data sets, and you basically work with them via the OData. Okay, so we'll play with some of that. I have some crime data that we can play with later. Okay, so here is, I mentioned the support is growing, and it's not just inside of Microsoft products themselves, but a lot of other companies are building on top of this protocol as well. Okay, so let's get a little bit deeper. I kind of started to mention the CRUD operations mapping nicely to those HTTP verbs, but it really is a set of URI conventions, okay, so that let you query and address tables, really, or entities. Okay, it's a more of a data model. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a database behind there. It could be some other data source, like SharePoint, for instance. Okay, but what you get with the OData is you get a very rich query language over HTTP. Okay, and what's kind of cool about the .NET implementation of the client is you can write language integrated query. Okay, and it will take those LINQ queries and translate them to those RESTful calls for you. Okay, so you can really be more familiar, and hopefully everybody loves LINQ and uses LINQ, knows what LINQ is. Okay, all right. So you can write LINQ queries, and they'll translate over to the HTTP GET. Now the other thing is these URI conventions. Not every single LINQ, query operation is supported over the GET, but there's a good chunk of them, and they're adding more and more. So you can, if you you probably have the deck, you can click on that link, and that tells you all the URI conventions, exactly what the languages support. Okay, so it's pretty cool. So I hate slides, but let's get through the slides quickly so I can get into like the actual demos. This is like. I tried to draw a picture because a picture's worth 1,000 words, but it turned out this picture was so simple that maybe I shouldn't have drawn the picture. But the idea here is that it is really simple to expose some data or a data model. So I have an EDM wrapped around some data, a data source. That data model can map completely different to what the actual tables are inside the database. But the data service goes over the model, and then you expose parts of the model to the service. So it's basically like throwing your database on a web server. Boom, it's pretty easy. Okay, scary, right? Yes, you can lock it down, and I'll show you how you can mess with the security and what you can and can't expose. Okay, but it really is that easy. All right, so with great ease comes great power. I don't know, be responsible. Okay, so consuming data services in .NET is just as easy as creating a service reference to any service that you would consume inside of any client app. Okay, so add service reference, right-click, add service reference. Specify the URI, and it will generate the proxy for you on the client side that you can work with the types on the service. Okay, so it's exactly the same experience you would have with a regular WCF service or an ASMX web service. Okay, so add service reference. In Windows Phone, that's in Silverlight and the .NET Framework, that's that experience. In Windows Phone, their add service reference is coming soon in the next release of the Windows Phone release. I thought it was going to be released at TechEd, but I'm not sure if it is. It might be a little couple weeks off. But currently, right now, I think if you download, there's a separate download to just get the client library for OData. It's a different client library for the phone. And then you just have to generate the proxy, manually, just a little command line thing. Okay, but the add service reference will come soon for Windows Phone. So the idea here is that you see all these different types of consumers, in .NET. Can be Silverlight, full .NET Framework, Windows Phone. There's a lot of libraries available for all types of different client applications. Okay, if we have time at the end, if I have a little bit of time, I'll show you a Windows Phone demo. All right, I want to throw a slide in here about Power Pivot. Who has never heard of Power Pivot? Okay, Power Pivot is a free Excel add-in. Okay, so if you already have Excel 2010 installed, you just go to powerpivot.com and click download, and it's an add-in. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to consume a lot of different types of data, more than just what Excel out of the box can give you. It'll let you connect to a lot of different types of data sources, and a couple of those data sources that I like are the SQL Server reporting services, which is nice. You can literally click on add a data feed, and go to the data market right inside. So you can consume all sorts of data inside of Power Pivot. And I'm not going to go through Power Pivot in its entirety. I probably think that tomorrow morning there's going to be a good session on Power Pivot and SharePoint in the morning. So if you're interested in what you see today, you might want to take a look at that. But we'll play with some OData feeds in Power Pivot. It basically allows you to consume millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of rows of data, relate them together from different data sources around the web, OData sources, or other SharePoint or whatever, relate them together, and then create these data mashups, these applications. Power users can do it. It has no programming knowledge required. You just have to know the relations between your data. And usually Excel users do know that. Okay, and if you go to powerpivot.com, it's like a lot of cute little videos on how to use it, and it's totally not like for the developer. It's more for the consumer, the IT person, or the information worker, the IW. Okay, so let's get to demos, because I really hate slides. You can probably tell I race through them. Okay, so I'm sorry, because I really just don't like slides. I like demos. So here's Visual Studio. So before I actually jump into Visual Studio, let me just show you. We talked about OData.org, and that's actually one place that you want to hit first to get started. Okay, so if you go to OData.org, this is the Open Data Protocol page. It has a lot of resources here for you. It has those SDKs, okay, the SDKs that are available. Here they are, okay, so you got all of them. PHP, that I was mentioning, okay, so, and then, of course, .NET Framework. We also have the server libraries here that you can download as well. They have some pretty cool, let's go to producers. There's some of our producers right there. SharePoint, IBM WebSphere, blah, blah, blah. I had all those. That was all kind of cool. These are cooler, I think. This one right here is kind of fun. Netflix or eBay. There's eBay. Also Netflix. They expose all their titles and what they have in their catalog as an OData feed, which is kind of cool. So you can kind of look through. Now this is basically the the schema of what they're offering us, right? Okay, so if I wanted to, this is the way this works. I'll do an issue a get here. Okay, so let's get genres. E-R-A-S-R-E-S. If I could spell genres, that would be awesome. Z-R-E-S. I obviously cannot spell. Okay, so there's a way, that's the way to address that entity, the set, the entity set. And I got back all the genres from the catalog. Okay, so titles, there's probably a lot of titles here. Okay, that's here, hold on, let's get the titles. But that came back pretty fast, right? So how many titles are in the catalog? Let's see. We can do this, $ count. Okay, there are over 154,000 titles. Okay, now that didn't really bring back 154,000 titles in that feed right there, right? That would have been like we've been here for an hour waiting for that to load. So basically, what you can do is you can specify on the server side how you want to filter out or limit. I think that's probably the top 100 titles or something like that it returned by default if I don't specify a query. And you can specify all of that on the service side. So you have complete control of how you want your data exposed. Okay, so that's exactly what's happening here. Now, if I want to refer to a specific title, take a look at what you got here. You got this entry, okay, and then you've got its ID, and you notice its ID is actually a URL. Okay, this is the URL to that title. So if I wanted to just go to that particular title, there it is right there. I did it before. I did practice this before. Okay, so this would be just the one entity returned. Okay, the one title. Okay, so that's it. Those are all the properties. Now you can see the schema of the types. All of that is available, and that's part of the protocol. Okay, that's part of the OData protocol, is describing the types, the schema, and the addressing to how you navigate through all of these entities. Now, for instance, it has relations, okay, relationships. For instance, audio formats. If I wanted to look at the audio formats for this particular title, there you go, audio formats. Okay, so now I've just taken the relation. It's walking through the relationship, the navigation properties. Okay, so that's how you can get at all of your data. Does that make sense? Pretty easy once you realize that's all that's really happening under the hood. Okay. Of course, I hate, this is not a really great UI, Internet Explorer, right? And typing in URLs all day, it's great for us developers to navigate through data, but not for users, right? We usually have to write a client in some nice program to get this to actually work. So we're going to write a program, but what they've also provided on the OData site is a little Silverlight application that you can use to kind of navigate through this stuff. So for instance, I can go into grid mode and look at the genres. And let's see what we got. There's the genres, okay? And they're even allowing you to, I think, to edit this, so you could even edit it, that kind of thing, play with it. You can even build a query, you could say where genre, name, contains, I don't know, adventure, I think. Add query option. There is what the query is going to look like, okay? So on the wire, that's what the get will look like, and then I just hit the go button, and there's adventure, okay? So that is kind of a good way to kind of play with it, learn, how the query syntax works on the wire, okay? All right, it's kind of fun. It's a nice little Silverlight application to get going on. Okay, so let's write our own application. Let's get into this. So first, I'm going to need to write a service. So let's go ahead and create a new project. Whoop, file. My mouse is crazy. Here we go. My mouse wants ice cream. Okay, here we go. So file, new project. Okay, the first thing to get started, what you want to do is first of all, the OData and the OData protocol actually started coming out right around .NET 3.5 SP1, I believe. SP1 was the first kind of iteration of this. So it was called ADO.NET Data Services back then, and we've renamed it to WCF Data Services. Okay, so if you're in the 3.5, you'll actually see ADO. I love the search feature here. ADO. No? Yeah, I love the search function when it works. All right, it's called ADO.NET Data Services. When you go to .NET Framework 4, though, it's called WCF Data Services. Like WCF data. That's awesome. Oh, these are items. Okay, so yeah, this is a project template, so that's why. So at any rate, it does depend on whether or not you're running 3.5 or 4, that the project templates and the item templates are a little bit different names. The one thing that you'll get if you're doing .NET Framework 4 to start with the project template is you'll get this empty web application. So you can start with an empty web application to get started so that it'll just host the service, right? So what I'm going to do is just create one called Northwind, because that's our favorite database ever. I wonder back in 1996 if the people creating Northwind did know it would last for decades. Okay, so all this does is it gives you that empty web project, just gives a web config. All right, so now what I can do is I can go in here and add new item and try and show you what I was trying to show you. So if I was WCF, there you go, there's your WCF data service right there, okay? First what I need to do though is I need to create my model. Okay, I can create the data service first, doesn't matter, but I'm not going to have anything to expose yet. I'm going to create a data model. So let's create a data model first. And I mentioned on that picture, that beautiful picture slide that I had, that the easiest thing to do is to just use an EDM. So I'm going to call this Northwind. Okay, so this is an entity framework model, and I'll just generate it from the database since we only have 56 minutes left. Okay. And I am going to just select all of our favorite tables here. Now, obviously, what I could do is, I could mess with this model and only expose certain entities and, do all the things I would normally do when I'm modeling my entity. But I'm not going to get into that because it's not an entity framework talk. What we really want to do is now we want to go and add our new item. And this was when WCF data service, right? There we go. And let's call this Northwind. All right. Okay, so here's the template you get. Okay, so all it's asking you to do is just supply the name of your EDM. Okay, so name of the entities you want to expose. So Northwind entities. Okay. Now now what I'm doing now is I'm not exposing anything actually. I got a service that's not exposing absolutely anything right yet. By default, that's what it is. It's not exposing anything you want. You have to explicitly say what do you want to expose via this service. Okay, and the way you do that is you set the entity access rules. Okay, and set entity set access rule. Isn't that awesome? I love that. 2 sets in there. That's all. Okay, because it is an entity set. So I could say customers, right? I want them to just be able to, read or write, or read. I'll say, okay, go ahead and you can read multiple rows, or just no, you can only read one at a time. And this basically allows you to get fine-tuned exactly what type of operations are supported on each of the entity sets. Okay, so I'm going to just, of course, then you'd have to go through and say which ones do what and all that stuff. You could get really fine-grained like that, but If you want to be like, totally insecure, you could just say, no, just say all operations are supported across all entities in this model. That's the star means. Okay, so I just created a service that's basically exposing my database over the web. A couple other things, if any of you had messed around with this before, .NET Framework 4, in Framework 4 they have this thing called a data service behavior object now that you can actually set a couple of properties here to get the behavior that was supported before .NET Framework 4, meaning they added this couple of features so that you can get counts. You can basically just give me a count of how many items are here. Like I did for Netflix, I said the titles count. Okay, that's now supported in .NET Framework 4. Before that, you would have to bring all the entities down and count them in memory, and that was really inefficient. Okay, and the other thing is, which is actually pretty cool that I like, is the accept projection request. By default, these are both true. Accept projection request means that now I can query just particular properties on an entity. I don't want the whole customer to come back. I just want the customer ID and name. So that actually limits that data on the wire too, which is cool. Before this, you would have to say, here's the whole customer. And if the customer had a picture or something, then all that data would come down the wire. So they've made these a little bit more efficient on the wire. Okay, so those are some nice features there. Okay, so there's our service. Let's go ahead and let's just fire it up. And if it's all working, which it should be. Okay, here we go. There's our schema there. So let's say customers. And now it's hitting my database. And there are all the customers. Okay, so this literally returned every single customer. I don't remember. I think there's like 90 something in there. Okay, now if we wanted to address a certain customer, our favorite ELF key, okay, there's the single customer. Okay, and if I want to navigate to all the orders, there are all the orders for ELF key. Okay, you guys getting this idea? Getting the idea? All right, now a nice way to look at these requests and responses is to use Fiddler. Who's never heard of Fiddler? You should be embarrassed. No, okay. This is a great little free tool to download, and it just basically it shows you all of your HTTP traffic going back and forth. So actually, I want to do raw. I'm going to show you the raw, just back and forth. Okay, so when I execute, let's see, go back over here. When I execute this again, we should be able to see this in Fiddler. Here it is. Okay, so now we can take a look at, here's the request, and here is our response. So that's basically what you're looking at in the browser too, okay, your requests and responses. So this is really nice to use during debugging of your clients, okay, so if you need to look at the traffic, what's really going on the wire, you can see it here. Okay, and well, let's leave it up. Let's create a client. Internet Explorer has been awesome to us, but it's not really usable as a client, so let's create a new one, because console applications are much more usable, so let's create a console app. Guys are tired after the ice cream, huh? Okay, Windows, console app. And let's start messing around with our service. Okay, so before I add the service reference, take a look at the references here, what we got. We've got, when I added the WCF data service in there, we got two assemblies. We got the system.data.services, which just lives on the server side, and system.data.services.client. Okay, so there's a client library piece. When we go ahead and add the service reference, okay, I'll just hit discover. It'll just see it there. We'll call this Northwind service. What it'll do is it'll add a reference to the system.data.services client for us. Okay, so if we take a look at the references here, we see system.data.services.client. Okay, so that's the client library that's going to take and translate all the link code that we're going to write into those HTTP GETs, into that query language. Okay, so let's do this. Now that I got the reference, except that I got the reference, but did I get the URL? So here it is. Love it. Okay. 3973. Here's our URI. I'm going to need that, because what I'm going to do is grab a reference to this. So dim ctx as new. What did I call it? Northwind service. All right, Northwind service, Northwind entities. Okay, and now you just need to specify the URI. New URI. Okay, there it is. Okay, Now, to look at, let's move this out of the way so you can see it. All right, so to look at the traffic, though, on Fiddler, and you guys who use Fiddler probably know this, you got to just do this IPv4.fiddler. Okay, so that's because the Cassini, I'm using Cassini, the little web server down here, right? Okay, so this is going to send the traffic to Fiddler. Okay, so now we got this data context, right? Now we can start doing stuff. So I don't know, dim customers equals from, C in context.customers. Because see, now here's all of our, basically all of our entities are here. There's categories, customers, okay, that's all that. All right, for that, let's just say from there where country equals USA. Okay, so, and then I have to execute it by saying, for each, C in customers, console.writeLine, C dot, name, company name, sure, company name's good. All right, and then let's just do a read line. Cool. All right, set a startup project, right? We always forget that. Okay, there we go. So now let's see what Fiddler has to say about this. Okay, so there's our link query, and those are, the people that were returned, okay, in the United States. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's take a look. So here's it says customers, right? Give me all the customers, and then it created this filter, country equals USA. Okay, so that's how it's translating those queries on the wire. Okay, and then we can just see what it returned, and it returned a list of those customers, right? Those are all the entities. Now I said, give me just return all the customers, right? So that's every single property too, right? If I didn't want the property, all those properties, remember projections are now supported, so we could say, okay, just select, select maybe C.company name and, C.country. Country. Okay, so now we have a list of anonymous types here, right? So I could just say, I could just print them both out this time. Okay, now what are we going to get? Get the same list of people here, except we don't have customer types anymore. We have anonymous types. And you'll see here now the filter is still same, but but it says select company name and country. And now you'll see in the response here that there's just the two properties are returned. Okay, so starting to get the hang of this protocol and how it works. Okay, cool. So we've got an awesome console app ready to ship. Give it to the user. No, okay. Now this is just querying, but there's obviously update, insert, deletes are also supported, right? Modifying the data is also supported. And since I'm in my service, I'm just saying exposing all operations on all entities. Let's mess around with some of the data. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. Now there's a couple different ways that you can, that you can update data, and I'm going to just drag this over here, and hopefully that's the right spot. Okay, this works in 3.5 and 4.40 frameworks. Okay, there are basically operations on the context. Okay, update object, here's update object, add object, there's add object, there's delete object. Okay, delete object right there. Okay, so what's kind of a drag though is, this works if you're just modifying one thing and then sending it back and you know what you're doing, insert, updating, or deleting. But what's kind of a drag about this is that you have to then, if you have a client like a more rich client like a Silverlight app or a WPF app, then you need to start tracking update, inserts, and deletes on the client side and then sending them to the server. You know what I'm talking about. You probably have how many collections have you written to track changes, right? Thousands of them. Okay, so what they have now for you, which is another one of my favorite little objects here, is the data service collection. Okay, so the data service collection allows basically you to just not even think about it. Hold on, I got to do a couple imports here. And it will go ahead and, as long as you use this thing list, here I got a list here, data service collection of what the entity is, of customer in this case. If you use that, then it will go ahead and it'll keep track of all the changes for you. Okay, so in this case, I'm saying, well, I'm just saying take the top 2 customers. Okay, select the top 2 customers. Let's see, change the contact name by just adding test onto the end. Insert a new row into this collection. And then right there, and then remove the top one. I'm going to remove the first one. Okay, so I'm doing an insert, update, and a delete all in one in this collection, okay? And then what you do is you tell the context to just save the changes, okay? And there's an option here to batch them, okay? So which is cool because then you're not sending, you're not sending multiple requests over the wire. You're just sending one giant batch, and it ends up going into like a transaction in the database, okay? So you can control all that stuff too. So I probably don't need a transaction in this particular case, but if it was a customer and their orders, you would, right? Okay, so let's see how this one works. Okay, let me just, actually, I'm just going to run it, and I was going to say let's put a message, but it'll scream at us if something's wrong. Let's do that. So let's just delete this stuff. And I guess I can delete the read line here. Let's get rid of that. All right. Okay, Fiddler's still running. We're all good. Let's actually clean this up so we can see our stuff. All right, let's go. Okay, that was good because no error happened. So what went on? Okay, so first of all, we did do a query. Take the top two, because see, there's the top two. That's that guy. And then what I did is I made changes to it. Now, take a look at the request here. So it's a batch. It's a multi-part content here. We've got a merge. What's merge mean? Update. Okay, update the elf key, right? And here's the info. Okay, got the info. There's the test right there. Okay, got that. What else? Post. Okay, that's post. That's an insert. Insert. Here's the new data. And then delete. Just delete. All it needs to do is specify what key, and just delete that. And then the response will be a multi-part response. So you can also check these. If you get an error, you'll get in the response. You'll see all the multiple messages. It'll break it down for you into a collection. Okay, so what's the response here? There's no content. The first one, everything was fine. The second one, though, because it was an insert, will return the whole customer back, just in case we had any database defaults or anything like that. Like a key or something like that. It will come back, and then basically 204, everything was fine. I deleted your other guy. Okay, so that happens all inside of one request and one response on the wire. Okay, so that's how you can control updates. Okay, so that's updates, insert. Okay, so what about filtering and some sort of validations maybe we'll want to do on the service side, right? So we can do that. You can get some, whoops, sorry about that. What happened? Let's get rid of that. Okay, dude, over here. Here we go. I'm from California. We say dude a lot. Okay, what you can do, like Netflix did when it limited the amount of data that was returned, you can limit the results with what's called query interceptors, okay? So in this case, I just import something, yes. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm kind of tacking on to the query. Any query that comes from the client is going to be coming right in through this query interceptor, and then I'm just tacking on, by the way, make sure you don't return any products that aren't discontinued, okay? Please return products that are not discontinued. Okay, so I'm saying discontinued false. Okay, so that will immediately filter out all those results on top of it. Okay, so you can use query interceptors to do additional filtering on top. You could even, check Active Directory or get it, security or whatever you want to do, right? You want to check certain things and return different results. Okay, or you could always say top 100, period. That's all you need to return. Okay, so that's probably what Netflix is doing. Something similar to this is a query interceptor. Okay, the other thing that you can do is with changes. Okay, when people are submitting changes, you might want to have some sort of, on the service side, check some basic validation rules and things like that, right? So you can also do that with what's called a change interceptor. Okay, and so in this case, I'm looking to just see, okay, if I'm adding or I'm changing a product, make sure that the product name is not empty. Okay, and throw an error if it is. Okay, so this kind of just is at the server side, so the buck stops here, service side, that, you can't change, you can't basically throw a product name that's empty at me. Okay? Does that make sense? Do I need to run the client pieces? We'll pretend this works perfectly. Okay, it does. It works perfectly. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to show a different perspective on a different client, not just working with console apps. But console apps was helpful for seeing things that were really happening on the wire. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to work with some other data. Okay, real quick here. I'm going to go into the data market here, if I can get over here. Okay, so here's the data market. When you just go to the data marketplace, you need to sign up, via Windows Live ID or whatever, and you just create an account. And then what you can do is you can basically browse, the data sets and categories. There's business and finance, demographics, those sorts of things. So I think I went into demographics for my particular stuff. And there's a lot of data in here that you could subscribe to. Some of it's free, some of it's pay per transaction. Okay, so that's what I was mentioning. If you have a lot of cool data you want to sell, this might be an option for you. Now, what we're going to do is I already subscribed to, the government has some, free stuff. So I already subscribed to one called Crime Data in the United States from 2006 to 2008. Okay, so I'm going to explore this data set. There's a couple ways that you can do it just here, right in the browser. Here's the city crime. Let's get our favorite state. Let's see what we got. Run the query. Okay, so there we go. It returned all the cities in Georgia, and it's basically it's crime data for those 3 years. Now, the other thing is you can sit here and visualize it. You can almost create like an Excel-like bar chart and that sort of thing right here inside of the browser, which is kind of cool, I guess. Otherwise, what we're going to do is I'm going to take this. This is the URI. Okay, this is the call. Oops, hold on. I think I got that too much. Here we go. I'm going to just copy that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Excel. Okay, and I've already installed the Power Pivot add-in, so I'm just going to go to the Power Pivot tab and open up Power Pivot. Now, the cool thing about Power Pivot, it is meant to kind of extend what's just in the box inside of Excel, in meaning that it can connect to a lot of different types of data sources and data. But it also is got this compression algorithm in it that can really compress the amount of data too. So you can be working with millions and millions and millions and millions of rows inside of Excel, and it's actually compressing that data down for you so you're not like having these gigantic spreadsheets. And the other part that's really cool that I think is a talk tomorrow that I might even go to is Power Pivot also has a SharePoint piece on the back end. So after users create their wonderful applications of data, they can actually store them in SharePoint, and SharePoint can be set up to refresh the data sets behind the scenes at certain intervals. And then IT can hold on to that data. It's not like it's floating around email all over the departments anymore. Okay? And which I think that's a really cool thing. And the other thing is you can use Excel services at that point where other users can view what the user did here, and they don't have to have Excel installed, and they can just see through Excel services, via the web in SharePoint. Okay, so I'm not going to get to the back-end piece of it. I'm just going to play with the client piece of it. Let's go ahead and put our feed. Actually, not that. It's from Data Market. Here we go. Okay, here we go. The one thing, it's a little different from the data market because I have this URI, but it also wants my account key. Okay, so I got to go and feed it this account key. So the way you get that is you go to my account keys, and that's my account key. So if somebody can remember that, they can have it. Go for it. Is Rain Man in the audience? Okay, right. All right, you guys remember that. Everybody got that? Okay. All right, there we go. I'll save it. All right. Okay, so here's this feed content. Let's see what we get. It's going to import it. I just pulled the top 100. Okay, and now here's all of our data. Okay, so now we can go and we can do things that we normally would do in Excel, right? So I could go over here. Let's create like a pivot table. In this existing worksheet is fine. Notice that it looks like a pivot field list, but it's called Power Pivot field list. So it's actually like communicating, right? This is actually a VS2 add-in, actually, that's communicating with the worksheet here. Okay, so let's go ahead and look by city, the violent crimes. Let's guess. Let's guess who has the most violent crimes in Georgia. Can we guess? I should have done California. That would have been an easy one, huh? Okay, that's pretty easy. Hold on, I just need to make this a little bigger so we can see it. Good old Atlanta. By a lot. By a lot. The next town is Columbus. Poor Columbus. Okay, number 2. But like a way distant number 2. So Atlanta, man, it's a pretty rough town. Woo. I mean, at least when you do California, you see, LA, San Francisco, Oakland, or Oakland, San Francisco, something like that. This is like, woo, we're skewed. Like everybody else does nothing in the rest of the state except Atlanta. All the crimes happening here. Okay, So there you go. I just did a little bit of analysis, basic analysis here on some data that's actually sitting in Azure. Okay, so that's just sitting in the cloud. And what's also cool is if you have data that you would like to then relate to this data, then you can go ahead and create these data mashups where the data is coming from all over the place, multiple data sources from all over the place. Okay, so that's fairly powerful. And you can, like I said, store a lot of data in here. Okay, so let's do something else. Any questions with the data market? No? Okay. Have fun with it, browse it around. Let's go back to our project here, and let's create a new service. Let's create a new service that's not based on Northwind. So I'm going to add a new project, and I'm going to do an empty web application again. And we're going to use AdventureWorks Data Warehouse. Okay, so I'll just call it Adventure, because we're on an adventure here. Okay, so and now I'm going to add, next step, what is it? Next step is get your data model, right? Okay, so data model, adventure. Did I get it? Looks like it went away. I don't know what happened. I might have hit cancel. Sorry. Okay, one more time. Add new item. There we go. Okay. I lost my mouse. That's why I'm like using the thing here. That's why I'm like a little clumsy. Sorry about that. All right, so AdventureWorks Data Warehouse. And note that I kind of bypassed talking about this, but include foreign key columns in the model. That's also now an option in .NET Framework 4, okay, if you're doing the 4. And actually, this is going to be important for us for this particular example, and I'm going to show you why in a second. So let's go ahead and take all the tables. Okay, and now next thing we need to do, we've got our model. It's beautiful. We love it. Now we're going to just create our service. All right, so we've got web. Scroll all the way down, WCF data service. Okay, and I'll call this adventure service. I'll just call it adventure. Okay, so now we just need to, what? Expose the class, right? So that's AdventureWorks DW warehouse. There we go. Entities. Okay, and now I'm just going, in this case, I'm just going to, it's a data warehouse. This is just, our dimension and fact tables and that sort of stuff. So I'm only going to allow read into that thing. Okay, so I'm just going to, everything you can just only read. All right, so now we've got the service going, at least the code going. Let's actually get it going. So let's go ahead and view it in the browser and run it. All right, cool. Now, the first step was actually like, this first good sign is to get this, the schema. But actually, it's not hitting your database at all at this point. This is just reading, like, the model. Okay, it's just kind of, oh, here are all the things that are available. It's not until you actually call up the entities that it's going to hit the database. So you should try something like, this. Now, I went and got the data. Now I know everything's working great. Okay, so now this is all my employees in here. So what I'm going to do is go back over to Power Pivot. Okay, and instead of doing from data market, it's not on the data market this time. It's just a generic OData feed. Okay, so you can say from data feeds. Okay, and in this case, I should have just copied that URL here. Where is it? Here it is. Okay. Okay, so let's grab this guy. Cool. Okay, so now here's all of our tables or entities. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the employees actually, and I'm going to take the sales quotas. Okay, let's import that stuff. Okay, so I'm the information worker hat now. I'm like, oh great, like IT put our database finally on some sort of place I can get at the data. So IT's finally cool. So I don't have to have them build these reports. So now I got these two tables. So what do I do now? So you should check out these little videos. They're so cute about how to manage relationships and stuff like that for the information worker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to relate the two tables together. As developers, this is pretty normal stuff, but this is why I put in those keys. Okay, that's why I say go ahead and include the keys in the model. Okay, so now I'm relating these two tables together. Okay, close. And now we can go and we can do this again, create a pivot table. Now I've got it on two guys. So let's see, we've got let's just do by like last name and check all of the, so here's the quotas, that's what I want to see. Okay, let's do the, what do we want? The sales amount for the calendar year. Let's put it on the column. There we go. Okay, so now we can start to see some of this data here. That's an interesting sales. Obviously, 2004 doesn't look so good, but I don't know what happened to 2008 or 9. But anyways, okay, they all got fired. All right, our company went out of business. I don't know. Okay, so here's some of our sales data. Okay, another thing that I'd like to do is this little new feature. Oops, this little new feature. Oh, hello, go back. New feature of Excel 2010. It's called Spark Lines. Okay, here's the data range. I'm going to visualize the data in each of the rows too. Okay, so you can kind of see how this looks. I didn't do the grand total, okay, but you can kind of see like, oh, the data as it goes up and down across a row. Okay, so it just gives you a visualization of these numbers here. Okay, it's kind of cool. That's called a spark line. Okay, so now I'm doing I'm creating my application and it all looks great. And now I can finish that off and save it to SharePoint, and IT can manage it. That's the idea. So I've just created an application. I can write macros, do whatever I normally do in Excel, right? So this is for the Power Information Worker, right? You got that? So we went from developing the services, and if you are in the IT side, right, you are probably challenged with a lot of departments always asking you for reports or access to these databases or that sort of thing, and you're always trying to figure out how to really manage the access control to a lot of your data. And users will say, screw you, I'm going to just find this data and keep it on my machine and share it across email with all of my friends because, damn it, I need it, right? And that's what happens. It starts to get crazy, right? And then you're like, well, you didn't even know this department had this data, and then now the data's out of date because the second you take it offline, it's out of date, right? But it doesn't really matter for business decisions sometimes. You're like, oh, good enough, it's good enough. Here's the data from a couple days ago, it's fine. So this actually really tries to take control of the data in a lot of different ways. As a developer, you're exposing important information internally to your company that's necessary for them to, analyze and use more at a real time in a much more secure fashion and a much easier fashion. And then the users using Power Pivot can go and store these applications. This is really an application right now. They can store these applications on the server in SharePoint, okay? And then other users don't even need Office to look at them because they can use Excel services just view it right in a browser, okay? All right, so that's kind of cool, right? You guys knew about that? Cool, I taught you something. All right. Okay, so what about this is kind of like, you have to be fairly data savvy. I mean, most Excel users are, but this might be a little too tough for the person, that just needs a report, right? So let's do something else. I'll save that. Okay, so I'm going to go and show you something else, some other data source. Let's go home. Okay, this is SharePoint. I'm running SharePoint Foundation on this laptop. Okay, so I got Contoso Insurance Company. Okay, so Contoso is an insurance company, and they track claims, incidents, and the status of them. Okay, so let's pretend there's hundreds of thousands of rows in here. I just didn't want to type them all. Okay, so I've got a few claims in here. You'll notice that the statuses are different. New, agent assigned, bid received, repair complete. Okay, I mentioned that SharePoint also exposes all of their list data as a data service as well. Okay, so go back over into here, and let's add a new project. Okay, and this time, instead of making them do Power Pivot and making your users to figure that out, let's write them a report ourselves. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll create an Excel workbook. So I'm just going to call this workbook 11. Okay, so I want to create like a nice data visualization of the data there that's sitting in SharePoint. Okay, so what I'm going to do is first add the service reference. Okay, so here first I got to set it as startup. There we go. And I'll add the service reference. Okay, and this time the service reference, here we go, is VTI bin list data SVC. Okay, so there's the data service. Okay, that's like, you'll see all the standard stuff that SharePoint has, like attachments and calendar and all that stuff, but you'll also see any custom lists that you create too. There's incidents, there's my list right there. Okay, but you got access to all of those. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this in here. Cool, all right, so I think we'll call it Contoso. All right. Okay, so now I've got this service reference. Now, we created the list, but SharePoint is exposing this, schema to us, and it's kind of hard to see it in Internet Explorer, right? So there's actually this extension that you can install called the Open Data Protocol Visualizer, and you'll want to grab this thing because all it does is it allows you to get more of a visualization or a diagram of the services. So when I right-click, you get this new option right here. It says View in Diagram. So I'm going to do that, and then you'll see, oh, here are all the entity types, the associations, any complex types that you see. I'm just going to drag over the incident item here. Now you can kind of look at it a little bit easier. You can see here all the types and the properties that it has on that entity. And you can say, okay, let's add the related entities. I don't want to see everything. Just add anything that's just related to that directly. Okay, so let me go down. Okay, so now you can start to see there's the user information is related to the incidents. Okay, we have an incident status. Okay, and we also have attachments if we need them. Okay, so that's just an easy way to start visualizing the OData service in a little bit, easier to use way, I guess. Okay, so if you're not like happy with, reading, gobs and gobs and gobs of RSS feeds, you like this better. Okay, so I'm going to go back over here, and now that we've added that reference, we actually have it in our data sources window. And I'm going to take this guy, and I'll drop it here. Okay, so it's just doing some basic data binding. There's a lot of fields here. There's a lot of internal fields as well that SharePoint has on side of that entity. So I don't want to show all of them. Let's just take off some of these from View. So hide that. You guys knew that Visual Studio hosted like Excel inside of it, right? Sometimes people don't know that. This is like my team, VSTO, baby. Okay, so, woo! Yeah, you knew about it? Yes. Okay. All right. So sometimes people are like, "What the heck is she doing? Is that Visual Studio or Excel?" Yes. Okay. So it is, and it's 64-bit version of Excel actually. Okay, because I'm on a 64-bit machine. All right. So I've got title and status value. Okay, I just got it data bound to this binding source down here. Okay, so now you can do all the things you normally would in Excel, so I'll create the pivot table here. Actually, you know what, I'll create a pivot table and chart. Okay, so I'm going to use this list object. Let's just stick it on the existing worksheet, like right there. Okay, it's starting to get a little cramped in here, but you can see where we're going here. Okay, move that down a little bit over here. Okay, so here's my pivot table. What we'll do is we'll just say the title, and we'll just count the status values. Okay, count the status value. Did I do that right? Not axis status value here. Okay, so the count of the status value, and we'll stick this as a chart, a bar or pie chart. Pie better. Okay. All right. Now we need to write a little bit of code to actually access the service. Okay, so I'm going to go back over here. And we'll view code. Okay, so in the startup, we're just going to need to get a reference to TX. Actually, I have the code. I'll drag it over. It's easier. Okay. Here we go. So the only difference you'll notice is that you have to supply SharePoint network credentials. You have to have access to that data. Okay, so that's the only difference here that I've got going. But everything else is exactly the same. So you get a context. There's the URI. And in this case, I'm just pulling all the incidents and ordering by the status value. Okay, and then I'm binding that data to that data source. Okay, so that we'll see it in the list object. Okay, and then I'm refreshing the pivot table. All right. So what I want to do though is I also want to put those cool spark lines on the side. Okay, so I just wrote a little bit of code to find where, most of this code is actually just to find where I put the pivot table and stuff. So it's just kind of trying to figure out where I am on the screen. Okay, so that's what that's doing. But really, all you need to do is use this Excel, XL Spark scale, what scale you want, and the sparklines group. You just add these sparkline groups to Excel. Okay, in this case, I'm not going to do the line. Because we have like a count, I'm going to do a column. So if you have like a high count, it's going to be like a wide column. If you have a low count, it's going to be like a little column. Okay, it's going to be more of a column across data, this direction instead of just this direction. Okay, all right. So we all love programming Excel. I just need to call it. Okay, so me to add sparklines. Cool, and we just pass it the pivot table. We got going. And if all goes well, if all goes very well, then this won't blow up and I'll have a really pretty pie chart and you'll all give me a round of applause. Okay. All right, let's see what happens. Calculating pivot table report is a good sign. Hey, there it is. So it looks like the count, all right, that's not quite right though. It looks like the count, I must have counted the actual titles and not the status values, so a little bit off, but you know, basically we got their sparklines are kind of all one. So let's just change I think what I did over here in the workbook, in the workbook on the screen, I think what did I say? Yeah, I didn't want the title here. Hold on, we'll remove that. I actually wanted the status value here. Okay, so I want to see the status values and the count of them, okay? Not the count of the other things. Anyways, so you get the idea though. Okay, so the idea is you can like provide users a power pivot, a powerful way for them to build these reports, or you can write them yourself. I mean, we're using, I obviously have this all wrong, but okay. You can create these reports yourself, okay, using a lot of different tools in Visual Studio. So we had started with Netflix, right? We started with the Netflix data before. I actually have a phone application. Okay, because you can use OData and the client inside of a Windows Phone as well. So I showed you Silverlight, I showed you Console app, because you know you love Console apps, Excel, and now we'll do a Windows Phone. So I have the Windows Phone here, and I've just got a simple application that pulls up a list. I think it's a list of titles by genre, and you can supply the genre inside of the phone, and then you'll go ahead and get all of the titles. Now the difference between the phone, okay, there's a little small differences here between the phone and the Silverlight and .NET framework is that right now, I believe, okay, because they're going to have another CTP and it will be supported, Link will be supported in the next CTP, but for right now, which I think is like, unless they released it in the last couple days, you still have to use this is the syntax, you have to use on the wire, the RESTful syntax here, okay, so you're actually providing that, you know, work with the OData Explorer there, that little Silverlight app, and you can create these queries, and then you can just plug them right into your code like this. So in this case, I am like saying, okay, there's a little text box on my screen. Where's my screen? Let's get my screen. Okay, so the resolution is a little small here, but let me scroll over here. Okay, so I've got a little text box down here on the screen. And I'm just saying, okay, well, read whatever that is. And then in this list box, it's going to fill out all of the titles, okay, that match. So let's go back over here. Okay, so that's what I got right here. So expand the titles. And then you have everything in Silverlight and on the phone has to be all asynchronous. Okay, so you have right here, load async. Okay, and there's the URI. And once the load is completed, then at that point, you have the data. Okay, so if there's any data, then I'm just go ahead and, you know, fill in this list, okay? All right, and then I'm just, you know, no titles were found if there weren't any found. Okay, so this is pretty basic, but this kind of just shows you the power of what OData can do for you. So let's hope the emulator gets started here. You guys been playing with phone development? I mean, I just started myself, but it's pretty fun. It's pretty easy, actually. Okay, so here's our OData sample. I'm just going to hit the Go button because I know adventures worked before. No titles found in that genre. That's adventures. Maybe. Oop. Hold on. Well, it might be, oh, yeah, hold on. Hold on, I got to do this back here. Adventure. It might be the fact that we don't have internet going through the emulator, though. That could be an issue. Yeah, let's see what we got here. Let's put a breakpoint on some stuff. Let's do this. Let's see what's going on. Okay, go. That's a good sign. Okay. Hold on. Load it. Look, I want to do this right here when it loads completed. Okay, it doesn't look like it's going out to the internet for me, but you know. So this counts 0. Okay, well, I don't know what happened. There should be something in there. Let's check real quick. Darn it. You know, I just hate when that happens. Yeah, well, you know what? I could do Fiddler. Is it coming back with, no, that's, yeah, I could do that. We could do that. But I just wanted to see to make sure, okay, the genres, we have adventures. See, that was right. Okay, I just wanted to check that, make sure. Yeah, let's check that. That's a good idea. We'll debug. Why not? It's on the fly. Sounds good. So let's go back up here and just change our to Fiddler. Well, you can't see Fiddler. Okay, yeah. Fiddler here. Let's just start this again. There's too much junk in there for me to see. All right. Now we've got a clean Fiddler. Fiddler's on my roof. Okay. As long as the roof's not on fire. Okay, actually, let's check this. Okay. Okay, we got some breakpoints. Cool. Okay, here we go. That's why. It didn't actually make a call. So I don't know what the deal is here, but that's not good, I guess. Well, darn, you know what happened? It worked in the hotel room. I guess it's just kind of has stage fright, maybe. Yeah, I don't have the full URL in there, but the thing is you have a relative URL. So I've got it's relative to this. So it starts here, okay, which it does look like it's running there, okay. So there, it starts there. And then what you do is you have, from there, you've got a relative URL. So it's just saying relative here. So it's adding on this /genres, blah, 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 okay? So I'm thinking, what's it? Really? Someone's got it? Someone's pair programming with me. What do you got? Yeah, the URL, it didn't even look like it made a call, though. That was me just now. So let's do this. Let's make sure our URI is correct. How about that? Okay, so it looks right. The genres, adventures, expand, titles. Okay, so get all the titles. So load async should execute the call, right? So but it's not. Because it's not going out to the internet. I think there's actually a connection problem with my emulator. Honestly, sorry about that for the internet. So I don't really want to debug it too much longer. But there's the idea there, and literally the next CTP will allow you to do the link queries here. So that's kind of the key I wanted you to see. This is the kind of syntax you have to use in this particular CTP. Okay, so. For the last 11 minutes, I want to show you one more thing against SharePoint, and then I'll take questions and that sort of stuff, and you can ridicule me for my non-working demo. But that was kind of on the fly. The last thing I have here is updating against SharePoint, because that's also supported. So I actually have, let's see, where did I stick this thing? So I put this in a place that I obviously couldn't find it really easily in a demo. Here we go. Is it this one? Okay, here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to update my SharePoint calendar. So meaning I've got a calendar in SharePoint and I've got a calendar inside of Outlook, right? So really? Okay, that's probably okay. Hold on. Let me open the project. How about that? No, wrong one. Wrong one, dude. This one. So actually, I probably should open my email, and you'll see all my wonderful email in here, right? We'll flip really quickly, off of that. Oh, okay. You want to see my password? You can take it. Okay. I don't care if you see my calendar. Okay. All right, so here's my calendar. I'm in this session right now, right? Okay, and I've got automatic replies on, so hopefully I won't get a ton of emails while we do this. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to synchronize. I want to basically be able to, when we add a new appointment, I want to be able to optionally add this into SharePoint as well, because SharePoint's got a bunch of calendars in here, right? So let's go home. Okay, so we've got a calendar, right? Okay, so what I want to do is I want to make it optional. If the user creates an appointment in Outlook, let's send it over to SharePoint as well. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. Oop. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, yes. Oops, that was the wrong one. What happened? Here we go. This is an Outlook add-in. Okay, so File New Project, Outlook 2010 add-in. Okay, and that's how I created this sucker. So if we take a look at, there we go. Here it is, update SharePoint calendar. Did it not load? Oh, shoot, no, it's here. It's just not expanded. Did it not there we go. Okay, so here's the add-in. Okay, and I'm just going to view the code on this guy. I've got a couple pieces to this. It's got a ribbon. It's got a ribbon across the top, just so it has a button to click yes, I want to update the calendar or not. So it's a visual designer, add to SharePoint calendar. So when you click on that, it will go ahead and add. It also has another piece down at the bottom that shows kind of like the data. You could make this an actual calendar, but shows the data that's coming from SharePoint. Okay, so here's the code that I'm using. Okay, so it's the same idea, except I'm working against the local host instead of the Contoso site this time. And supply my network credentials, that's just the context. And now I'm getting where today's date, give me all of the SharePoint calendar information, okay, from the calendar info, where today's date is matches the date that we're at. And then I can go ahead and say, okay, now I'm taking all of the Outlook data, which is Outlook, which is an appointment item, and I'm basically just creating a new SharePoint calendar item, a new object right here, and I'm just saying add to calendar, okay, the calendar item. So it's actually pretty basic. And then I can also update it, right? So if it's adding or updating, I can just check whether or not I'm making a change or an adding of a new appointment inside of Outlook, and then I can coordinate that with SharePoint. Okay, so then I save, okay, and I save the appointment itself in Outlook, then I save all the changes to SharePoint. Okay, it's pretty easy to do. Okay, and I'm doing this all over OData. So let's go ahead and set this as the startup project, and we'll read my email again. So by the way, when you're working with Office and you're done, developing on Office, do a build clean solution, and that will go ahead and remove all of the add-ins from the registry and everything. So when you start up, your email again or whatever, it doesn't try and execute any of those add-ins you were building. Okay, so what I'm going to do is add, let's see, add maybe an appointment here. Okay, so now we've got there's the calendar info. I didn't have any calendar info yet. Okay, so I've got a lot of appointments here. So let's go subject, fix phone emulator. Basically, I need to do that. Okay, and you could set a location, my office. Okay, get this demo working. Okay, oops, next time. All right, cool, and now what I can do is I can say add to SharePoint calendar, and hopefully it'll work. Yay, look at that. All right, so if we go over to the calendar, we should be able to see our stuff. There it is, fixed phone emulator. Okay, so now I have this coordination back and forth. Okay, and so that's kind of like the power of OData. It's in a lot of different platforms and a lot of different ways that you can use data over the web, right? And it really is meant to break down the silos that we have right now, like I was talking about, like that users are going to just do what they're going to do anyways. And for you too, as a vendor creating really maybe engaging client applications that wants to pull in traffic info or weather info or that sort of stuff. You can use the data market to enhance or enrich your applications as well. If you're a company that has a crap load of really cool data, you can sell it. Okay, so there's a lot of different opportunities in a lot of different spaces on the consumer side and on the producer side with OData. So I'm going to leave you with a couple resources here back on my PowerPoints. Okay, and they have a cool way to do your evals, I think, too. So first, let me show you these resources here. So remember, the two that you need to remember from this talk are odata.org and powerpivot.com. Okay, those are the two sites that you really can get started on both of those technologies. Obviously, I threw the the SharePoint and the VSTO team blogs in there and that sort of stuff. But Astoria team, that's the team blog that actually builds OData and those services. Okay, so that's that team. But we also have SharePoint Dev is the SharePoint's new blogging site as well. Okay, so I kind of threw a lot of technologies at you today and tried to integrate them and get you to think about some innovative ways that you can provide solutions, data solutions to your users. I hope I did that. I hope you got like some lights spinning on. Okay, forget the phone. Just SharePoint and Excel and okay, it's all BI. All right, so here is DevTrack resources. You probably have seen this about a zillion times because you've been in the DevTrack. They threw that slide in. Here's some more resources. And complete your evaluation. Please be kind. Here you can scan the tag. Okay, so while people are scanning the tag and doing whatever you need, questions. Mike is in the middle, the microphone. Not, I don't know if your name is Mike. Can you use a mic? Otherwise, no one else can hear you. I didn't mean your mic.
So going back to the Excel demo that you did, you wrote some code in the startup where you were pulling data from the OData feed.
Yes.
So does that mean that every time Excel opens, you're going to pull data, or is it going to persist data inside Excel?
So if you're using Power Pivot, it persists it.
Okay.
When I built that manually, every time that sheet starts up, I was calling it, but I could have cached it as well. I would have to write the code to do that.
And is there a way to just get delta so you open, it can just remove the rows from Excel which have been deleted from?
Yeah, you could do that. I mean, you have to work with the object model of Excel to do that, but yeah, you could definitely do that. Or you could actually do data binding instead. I'd probably just do data bind that and then store the data as an internal cache inside of Excel.
Thank you.
Sure.
When are query interceptors applied? Are they after the data has been retrieved from the database, or does that get built into the query going against the entity framework query?
That's a good question. They're applied after the client makes the call, as before it goes to the database. The query interceptor is applied, and then it goes to the database.
Okay, so the where clause would actually get updated before the call is made to the database.
Yes.
That's great. Almost every example that I see is going directly against the data context, the framework, or the Northwind entities or other entities. How would the data services play nice with something like the repository pattern rather than going directly against the data context? I mean,
honestly, all you need to do is implement some of the right interfaces for the OData services to work with. Okay. Underneath the hood, it didn't have to be an EDM, but I showed EDM because that's the simplest way to really get going. But if you implement the same interfaces that it needs, you can take a look at some of the links that I have, like OData by example is a good one. Then you can write anything. It can be a repository, it could be anything you want, any data source.
Any class object, it can, as long
as you're implementing the right interfaces for the protocol.
Thanks. Great presentation.
Thanks. All right, guys. Any more questions? Yeah.
My name's not Mike.
not Mike. Hi. Sorry.
What about streaming? If you have a large image or just a large amount of data, is there a way to stream it so your client could have a progress bar or something?
Honestly, it's like if you host it in IIS, then it's kind of like on top of that, caching and compression and all that stuff kind of you get for free, and you kind of work at that from that direction. Streaming itself really isn't like anything you can do code-wise. Let's put it that way. Same thing with paging. You have to like do paging yourself too. Okay. All right. Anything else? Anybody else? Did you guys have a good time? All right. Cool. Thanks.